Hi everyone, this is Susan, and today is Thursday. Yes, it is Thursday. And I'm hiding in my son's room because I have another child home. I think he probably has strep. So I guess the family that loves each other shares each other's germs. So we are going to take care of that today, and hopefully he will be ready and healthy and moving forward to go back to school tomorrow. But if not, I'll spend another day watching Christmas movies. So that's why I'm hiding in Elliot's room, is because I have Jingle Bells and Santa Claus 2 and Santa Claus Coming to Town in the background downstairs. So I am hiding. But I wanted to talk to you today about be the freak. Be the freak. So we live in a pretty extreme culture that it seems like you can't just be halfway into anything. I talk with my friends about situations with our kids and about how children, like growing up, for me, it was not uncommon for someone to do more than one sport, that they would do football, then basketball, then track, or they had multiple activities, or they would do marching band and at the same time do another sport in the fall. And how our culture has kind of turned more into a more extremist, like a one sport kid, where it's not just soccer in the spring, it's soccer year round, and it's driving your kid to games, travel soccer, hours away from home, and swim is the same way. And but it's not just in sports, it's across the board that we have now. It's not uncommon to be obsessed with any particular thing, whether it's a hobby or whether it is a political advocate or activist, or a social activist, or a health nut, money savvy, or a social butterfly. Or it just seems like we are in a culture of extremists. And so it's hard as a believer to be passionately and completely sold out to Jesus, but at the same time, like, I have a tendency to hold back a little bit because I don't want people to think that I'm like a Jesus freak, or that I'm not relatable, or that I'm not compassionate, or that I don't want to be with them because our views are different. And really, being a believer and being a Christian is the exact opposite. That when we do encounter someone else that has different views than us, is that it's a joy to be with them because we get the opportunity to share our views. Whether they think that they're extreme or not, that's a totally different thing. When I was in high school, I was an extreme, I don't want to say partier, because I don't think that partying necessarily defined every moment of my life, but I was extremely lost. I was a fanatical lost person, and I drank, I partied, I dropped out of high school. I was so lost, and I was so hurting, and I was so broken. And I got saved a few months shy of my 18th birthday. And then I really changed the direction of my life. I'm not saying that I was perfect, because I will tell you that for someone who is really, really lost, the process of becoming Christ-like, I think, is painful and slow and long. So I got saved and just really, really changed the direction of my life. And I can remember going back to my 20-year high school reunion. And at first I was a little bit nervous because I was so different. Like, I left there, the party girl, and I came back conservative. I didn't drink, I wasn't smoking, and I certainly wasn't talking like I talked when I was in high school. And I just was a completely different person. And I remember seeing one of my closest friends that I had spent a lot of time with, mainly partying with. And I remember when he came up to me and he said, "Hey, I heard that you turned into a religious freak, and how's that going?" And I can remember like being uncomfortable at first, mainly because of how he defined me as like the religious freak. And I remember kind of sitting back and being like, well, I mean, I love Jesus, but I'm not a freak. And I can't tell you how often, not all the time, but I do think about that encounter, and I think about his response to me, and I even think about my response and how awkward I felt that I was being defined as an extremist. But yet at the same time, going to high school there, I was certainly defined as an extremist, just not for Jesus. I was definitely described as a fanatical partier and someone that threw caution to the wind and did whatever she wanted. And now I found myself in a situation where I was being defined by something, and it was uncomfortable for me. And periodically through my life, I mean, everybody who knows me knows that I'm a believer. Everyone who comes in contact with me knows at some point in time, like that God's going to come up, church is going to come up. Like, it's just who I am. It's woven in the very fabric of my soul and in my being. But I still hate to be considered an extremist. I'm not really sure why. And I don't want people to think poorly of me. And I think that that's always been probably the thing that's held me to that, of not wanting to come across extreme. But I have to say, I am extreme. I passionately pursue Jesus in any opportunity that I have. That if I can be at church, like that's where I want to be. If there's a Bible study and I can make it happen, like that's where I want to be, as long as it's on a good subject and it's interesting. And there's food. Food is important, so I'm an extreme food lover too. But it is something that in my family, we have built our life around the extreme view that we are going to be sold out to God, and that we're going to open up our home, we're going to open up our family, and we're going to share that love with the people around us. And so when I was thinking about what I was going to do in this Facebook Live, I was thinking about like being the freak and what that means, and what is an extremist. And an extremist is a person who holds an extreme or fanatical view, and especially who resorts for someone advocating taking action. And as a believer, I'm an extremist. I'm an extremist because without the love of Christ in your life, without surrendering your life to Him, your life will not have the meaning that it could if you surrendered your heart and you surrendered your life to Him. And I know that that seems extreme, to surrender my life to Him, to His will and to His desires for my life is absolutely extreme, because we're wired, like the enemy wants us to hold our life so tightly that God can't move and can't navigate or have a say in the direction of our lives. But to know that when we surrender our lives to Him, that we're actually getting back more than we're sacrificing, that we're giving up. And I can to say that when I was partying and when I was an extremist for the world and when I was doing things my way, I was so unhappy and I was so broken and I was so lost, that when I look back at that time and people notice that there was such a difference in me from where I was when I was 17 years old and lost and broken and hurting to where I was 20 years later. And even now, I'm almost 10 years beyond that. So it's hard to believe that I'm almost 30 years beyond high school. And only because I dye my hair. But it's knowing that it's okay to be considered the freak. It is okay that that we shine the light of Christ in this season, that we talk about the hope of God, that we talk about that He is our refuge and our strength in times of trouble and in the storms. You know, we teach our children this song when we're little, and when they're little, and it's this little light of mine. And one of the things, and it's so funny because all of our kids kids loved this part. Like when you would hide it under the bushel, you would say, hide it over the bushel, and you go, no, and I'm going to let it shine. And as we get older, it's realizing that someone doesn't come and put something over us to hide the light of Christ, but there's things that are put on us. There's things that we put on us. There's things that cause the light to lose its brightness. And I think that even a fear of being considered extremist or being considered a religious fanatic, that we don't want to lose that approachability or that relatability. But I will tell you that it might be uncomfortable at times, but when someone is going through something and someone needs encouragement and someone needs godly counsel and wisdom, I'm telling you that they will be drawn to that. They will seek you out, because really in the end, when their situation is hopeless and when there's brokenness and when there's heartache, what they need is the extreme love of Christ. What they need is extreme hope to see beyond their current situation and their current circumstance. So the older I get, it seems the less I am worried about what other people think. And I'm glad that 10 years later, even beyond that moment of when someone asked me if I was a Jesus freak, that I was uncomfortable, that now I can say it myself. Like, I am an extremist. I'm an extremist for what I believe to be true. And that is that Jesus saved my soul. He restored the broken places, and his light lives in me. And I'm going to shine that when I come in contact with people, when I see situations that are heartbreaking, when I walk into the schools, when I walk in my community, when I'm at the store, and it's looking for opportunities to shine that light, that I'm not going to allow fear or what other people think of me to hide or to put a bushel over that light. And so I would say to you today, in this season, be the freak. Be the one that people run to when they need the hope of Christ. Be the one that people ask and they call for prayer because they know that their situation is beyond what they can handle. Like, be that person. Be the extremist. Be known for being different and set apart, and embrace it. And that doesn't mean that being the freak means that you have to do crazy and silly things, but it does mean that your standard is not the standard of the world, and that you live in ways that other people might consider different and abnormal and unique, but that's okay, because we are to be set apart. We are to shine his light, and know that as we move forward and as we engage with people, that their lives will be changed. Their lives will be impacted because of the words that we say and the beliefs that we hold true. I hope that you guys are having a fabulous Christmas season. This is just an amazing time, and I hope that all your children are staying healthy and whole, and they're going to school, and you're getting your Christmas shopping done. And I will see you next week. Bye.